Thank you. All right, good morning, everyone. Please have a seat. Okay, we're going to start again today. And before you left last Friday, I gave you my instructions not to discuss the case, don't do any research about the case, don't talk to anyone about the case, don't let anyone talk to you about the case, do not read, watch, listen to, or otherwise observe or consume any media reports about the case. Was everyone able to do that? Follow the instructions. Is there anyone who could not? And if so, would you raise your hand? Okay, let the record reflect that it appears that everyone has been able to follow the court's directions. And we'll turn now to the state.
State called Robert Corley.
The evidence is that the court and jury of the trial of this issue should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So, yes, sir. Step this way.
All right, good morning.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning. Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Yes, my name is Special Agent Robert Corley. I'm with the FBI Jacksonville Division.
And can you tell us just briefly about your education before joining the FBI?
Yes, I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and a master's degree in criminal justice.
And how long have you been with the FBI?
Since May 2011, so I'm coming 13 years.
Are you a full-fledged special agent, or are you in some sort of support role, or what? What's your role?
No, I'm a special agent assigned to national security investigations.
Now, you are here because you analyzed some phone records for some of the people involved in this case to see whether you could determine where they had been on the night of October 4th into the morning of October 5th, and whether their phones had made any significant movements. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Now, what is the methodology that you used to do that?
We define it as cellular analysis. We basically look at cellular records provided by cell phone companies, and we match those records with cell tower lists, which are also provided by the telephone companies, and then we use relevant dates and times provided by investigators to create a report and analyze the location of a device.
Now, did you do this in your capacity as a member of CAST?
Yes, I did.
What is FBI's CAST?
So CAST is short for Cellular Analysis Survey Team, and it is a team of approximately 80 agents and task force officers spread throughout the United States. CAST performs three primary functions. We provide training on cellular analysis to state, federal, and local law enforcement partners. We also use the methodology and the techniques we're going to talk about today to track and locate people in real time. So we'll often be asked to help locate fugitives, help locate missing children, and unfortunately a lot of times locate the missing bodies or remains of victims.
Now, can you tell us about the training part?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
And the third primary function is to do what I'm doing today, testify as an expert witness in trials.
Can you tell us about CAST training that you got that allows you to do this sort of analysis?
Sure. So CAST training starts with a basic course, which is just an introduction to cellular records that all agents, state, local, and federal law enforcement can participate. Once that class is completed, you can be invited to what's called an advanced course, which is reserved for FBI special agents and FBI task force officers only. After advanced course, you go on to what's called a field training certification, where you spend 3 days looking at prior investigations or cases You're put in like a command post situation where they give you a time limit to solve a case and see if you can come up with the same solution that the original case agents did. And if you progress through those and you meet all the minimal requirements, you can be invited to CAS certification. CAS certification is a 4-week course. It consists of 1 week of training in RF theory, radio frequency theory. That's taught by PhD professors from the Florida Institute of Technology in Melbourne, Florida. After that, we have a week of training and interaction with the cellular providers. In my case, it was AT&T, Sprint, Verizon, and T-Mobile. Sprint, merged with T-Mobile, so now people no longer receive that training, but at the time I did from Sprint. And they bring in the people that produce these records that we're going to talk about. So when law enforcement submits a search warrant or a court order, they will provide these records. They talk about how they pull them, what all the columns mean, and then we also talk with the engineers that actually work on the towers and the networks in the field. After that, we receive some training in mapping, different types of software that we use. We also receive training in something we call drive testing, where we take equipment out and we do measurements of the actual footprint of a cell tower. So we can not only say what we believe the cell footprint or the cell tower footprint would be, we can, in some cases, actually map out the actual footprint of a cell tower.
And have you completed all of those steps that you just described?
Yes, sir.
And do you hold the CAS certification?
Yes, sir, since 2019.
All right, so since 2019, you've been full-fledged member of the CAS team?
Yes, I received the training, and we receive an annual recertification, which is 24 hours of training every year, generally consisting of those same things. We bring the carriers back in. They provide any updates to any of their records, and then we also receive training from other companies like Google, Apple, companies that provide other location-based services.
So aside from the training to do this type of analysis, since 2019, have you gotten experience actually employing this in cases?
Yes, I actually use this in my own cases. That's how most people become a CAST agent. You start using some of this technology in your own investigations. So I use it not only to help other agents or investigators with their cases, but I also use it daily, weekly, monthly in my own investigations.
And have you testified about it in court before today?
I have.
About how many times?
19 times.
And have you been accepted by courts as an expert witness before?
Yes, all 19 times.
Your Honor, at this time I would offer Special Agent Corley as an expert in the area of cellular analysis.
Objection, Your Honor.
The witness is accepted as an expert.
Now, in this case, did you receive a request or perhaps a series of requests from the Savannah FBI office to conduct this sort of analysis with respect to some cellular records that they had obtained?
Yes, sir, I did.
And did you receive cell phone records from Taylor Burns of the Savannah office?
That's correct.
Did these records include a set of phone records for a number identified to you as that of the defendant, Leilani Simon?
Yes.
Did they include phone records for a number identified to you as that of her boyfriend at the time?
Yes.
Did they include cell phone records for a number identified to you as that of a brother of hers that was living in the same house during the relevant time frame?
Yes.
And did they include telephone records, cell phone records for a person identified to you as the father of the missing child?
Yes.
All right. Once you had these records, what did you do with them, in short?
So once I receive the records, first I do a check to make sure they're original records received from the phone companies. Nothing is out of the ordinary. And then I take the records and match them with a cell tower list. The records will provide you, in this case we specifically use timing advance records. They provide you with the tower used, the sector of that tower used, and then the distance from that tower. So we're able to provide a general location of where a device is located. So I use those records and then produce some maps and a report showing where the phone was located during that time.
You mentioned you produced some maps. Have you, for today, prepared a presentation detailing your findings?
Yes, sir.
And do you believe that presentation will aid the jury in their understanding of your testimony?
Yes, very much.
Do you see in front of you a document marked as State's Exhibit 64?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us what that is?
This is my report.
Your Honor, at this time, I would offer State's Exhibit 64.
No objection, Your Honor.
And I'd ask to publish it to the jury, Your Honor. All right. We're on page 1 of 12 here. Can you describe Can you describe the contents of this first page here? What are we seeing here?
It's just a title slide with the 4 phone numbers that are included in the report and the date that the last edit was made onto the report.
Okay, so the top number, that would be the defendant's, right?
Correct, 5275.
That 910 number, the second from the top, would be that of her boyfriend?
Correct.
And the one below that, another 912 number, would be that of her brother, right?
That's correct.
And then the last one would be that of the child's father.
Correct.
Moving on to slide 2, can you tell us what we're seeing here?
Yeah, this is just an introduction that describes that methodology that I just spoke to you about. We take cellular records, tower list, and then the relevant date and times that are provided to us by investigators and produce a report using those data sets.
All right, moving on to slide 3, what are we looking at here?
So this is just a general picture of what a cell tower looks like. We've all seen them around. The most common one is going to be the one in the far right corner for me, the one that's labeled a monopole tower. That's the most common one, but they can also be, a cell tower can be on the side of buildings. You would probably see that in the Savannah area. And then also based on certain statutes or regulations in certain cities or municipalities, they have to be hidden, but this is generally what cell towers look like.
Moving on to slide 4.
Yeah, so when you see that cell tower that's actually on the pole, a lot of people think of the pole or the apparatus as the tower, but the tower is actually the boxes that are on top of the poles. And in most instances, about 85% of all cell towers in the United States are configured in a 3-sector pattern. They could be configured in others, but by far the majority are 3 sectors. In this presentation, all of them are 3-sector towers. And what happens is the companies divide up the towers in those 3 sectors to service each side of an area. And they're generally divided in, you can think of a 360 degrees covers the full circle, and each sector is divided up into about 120 of that. So if you think of it as pie slices like it's illustrated on this map, each sector serves that general area.
So this diagram is, we're above a cell tower looking down on it.
Correct.
Yeah, these little gray boxes here are the antenna arrays.
Correct.
We were seeing in the last picture.
Yes, sir. That would represent the actual towers, what's transmitting that RF frequency or receiving that RF frequency.
Okay. So each tower, 3 sectors, about 120 degrees each.
Yes, and in the records, the tower list that I referenced earlier, it will tell you the azimuth of that sector. So the azimuth is the direction that the center of that sector points at. So in this orientation, one sector has an azimuth of 0, which is true north. Sector 2 has an azimuth of 120, and Sector 3 has an azimuth of 240. And once you know those, you know how to orient the pie wedge on your map to show which direction the tower's pointing.
And when a set of cell phone records says that a phone was hitting on a particular tower, does it also tell you which sector of that tower?
The cell phone records will, and you have to then refer to the tower list to find the orientation of each sector.
Okay. Slide 5.
So this is just in general narrowing down what you're going to see on the slide is one sector pointing towards the azimuth and covering that 120 beam width. We like to point out that the shaded arc is not the coverage area of a tower. It's just to help you orientate towards which direction that tower is facing.
Okay. In other words, the coverage of this sector doesn't end where the red shading ends. It's just a visual aid to show you which direction.
Correct, and it's helpful when you have multiple calls bouncing off sectors, so you know that these two were used and the third one wasn't. So.
Slide 6.
So this is what the sector will look like on a map once we've determined that a call activity or network activity has happened on that sector, and we've put it with the azimuth, and so you can see the general area. And what you also see on the maps are neighboring towers. So in this one, you have a tower here to the north, and we're able to use that sector and that beam width of 120 degrees in relation to the next neighboring tower and figure out a general area of where a cell phone would be located based on the tower coverage of that area.
Slide 7, timing advance explanation. What is this?
So timing advanced is engineering data that the cell phone companies use to help optimize their network. So if you were to call in and say, I'm having problems with my cell phone, probably the first place they would look is the timing advanced data, and they would see when a cell phone is in your location and it's a distance from the tower, what does the reception look like? And if they have problems, they'll then tweak their networks or maybe provide you a booster or something like that. But this data is collected and it's aggregated from the companies. This is not, it can be collected when your device is doing nothing. As long as your device is powered on, timing advanced data can be collected from the network. And they use a measurement of time, how far it takes, how long it takes a signal to reach the tower and then back to your phone, and they're able to calculate that into a distance. So now with timing advance, we have the sector, which is 120 degrees, the direction it points, and the distance from the tower. So on the map, this curve represents the location of that device. It could be anywhere on that arc at that distance from the tower.
So you say, it allows you to say, we know which sector this phone is using, and we know about how far away it is from the tower, but we don't know exactly where in that sector it is, but it's somewhere inside of this bent hot dog?
Correct.
Okay. And again, the person does not have to be making or receiving calls or sending or receiving text messages to get timing advanced data?
No, sir. It's as long as the phone's on, the network can collect activity from timing advance. It also could collect timing advance in connection with a phone call or a text message or a data session, but it collects when the phone is sitting there also. And the one thing that we note at the bottom of this is, timing advance is a measurement of time. So, let's say there's an obstruction, like this stand is in the way of my signal to the tower, and that has to go around that for that split second. So in some instances, the device will appear to be further out than it is because of that split second it had to go around. So sometimes you will see an arc that is just outside the location of a phone, but the phone can never be further out. The phone can never be outside of the arc. It will always be inside of the arc.
Moving on to slide 8.
Again, this is just to show what the timing advance band will look like on the map. Again, we have the neighboring cell tower, but we don't need to use that to make a guess because they've given us the distance from the tower that was used during that event. So that arc represents the distance that the device is.
And just to be clear, is this image, this mapping that's here, specific to our case that we're here for today, or is this just a kind of a demonstrative?
No, these are just general, same ones I use for every presentation, so it is not Savannah.
Okay. Moving on to slide 9. can you, so first of all, this is timing advanced mapping for the boyfriend's cell phone, right?
Yeah, the phone ending in 1458.
Okay, can you walk us through this, just kind of hitting all the component parts and what it is that it's telling us? Because there is a lot going on in this slide.
There is a lot going on. This is the timing advanced activity for that phone between October 4th at 10:30 p.m. and October 5th at 5:49 a.m. And what it shows is that the timing advanced arcs line up with a general area of the blue call-out box, which is the address I was given as the residence of the person that uses this phone. And what you can do with the timing advanced in these instances is you can look at where timing advanced overlaps with each other, and it makes that X, so that you know that the phone could be anywhere along those bands. But when you have two overlapping bands, it's going to be somewhere in there where near where the bands overlap, or it makes an X.
Okay, so just to be clear here, we'll start. It looks like we got this phone. 3 different towers gathered timing advanced data for this phone during this time frame.
4 different towers. If you look at the tower at the top, 4 different sectors.
Okay, 4 different sectors. All right, so this one on the left here, right? You're saying at some point during the night, this phone was hitting on this tower,
Yeah, there were 22 events on that tower.
which would put it in this band,
Correct.
and at some point in the night, it was hitting on this tower here, moving to the right.
Yeah, there was one event on that tower.
And where's the band for that one?
Can I stand up here?
Yeah, sure.
So this band here would line up with this tower. This band that runs from here to here.
Okay. And then, was it hit this tower here, moving to the right, the one that says CIDs 1755? Tell us about this and where the band for it is.
So there are 23 events off both of these. Same tower, 2 different sectors. And what you'll see on a lot of towers is they stack on top. So if you ever see a tower and you see like there's almost like a parking garage, they're all in the same location, but level 1, level 2, level 3, they're all built to service more customers. So if there's an increase in customer base, instead of putting up a new tower, they're generally just going to stack more towers on top of that pole.
Okay, so is that why they're not offset like 100 degrees, 120 degrees from each
Correct.
other? Because it's not 2 separate sectors of the same tower. It's
Yeah, so this is likely 2 towers sitting right on top of each other, one slightly pointed in a different direction than the other. So this would still be sector 3. These are probably both sector 3 towers, one with a slightly different azimuth.
okay.
And these bands are represented. You can see the one, so this one that's a little to the right, these 2 bands here that go and stop a little bit short, and the one that's pointed up here starts here and goes down to here.
Okay. And you're saying it's the intersection of these bands where that phone would have been during this time frame?
Correct. During certain time periods, you can see if, for instance, if there's a call, I think there was a call at 10:48 on this band, and then there's a call 30 seconds later on this band. Well, you can't be here on this band and then here on this band in 30 seconds. So you have to naturally start looking at where do these bands overlap, and you can start narrowing down the location of where they could be within those bands. And then you can just look at geography, like there's no roads here, there's no roads over here, there's no roads here. So you could start eliminating so many places on timing advance and start narrowing down to where it's likely at during that time.
Is it your opinion that this phone appears to have been in the area of 535 Buckhalter Road for the entirety of this time frame here?
The timing advance data would be consistent with it being at that location for the timing advance data that I have.
Right, through the night?
Through the night. They started at 10:30 and ended at 5:49.
Okay. Did you see any indication that the phone left the residence at any point that night?
No, this is all the timing advance data that we had for that telephone.
Moving on to slide 10, this would be the same, generally the same time frame, but for the brother's phone, right?
Yes, this one's at 11 instead of 10:30. That was the first timing advanced event, and then this one went to 9 a.m. Originally, we did some different analysis on the last phone to show where the phone went after 5:49, but this one was in the same location until 9 a.m.
Okay. And so, again, we're looking at where the bands intersect to tell where this phone appears to have been through this time frame.
Yeah, so these were both Verizon phones, both using the same towers, with the exception of that one event that happened on one other tower from the last slide. These are the same towers, same timing advance measurements, all lining up with being consistent with servicing that resident.
And do you believe that the timing advance data that you looked at for this phone is consistent with the phone having been at 535 Buckhalter Road during the time frame on the top of the slide there, 11 p.m. to 9 a.m.?
Yes, these timing advance bands would service that area.
Okay. Did you see any evidence in the timing advance data through your analysis that this phone left the residence at any point during that time frame?
There were no timing advanced events that led me to believe that.
Okay. Moving on to slide 11. This would be cellular analysis for the child's father's number. Is that right?
That's what was described to me, yes, sir.
All right. What is the area depicted on the map here? Where are we in the world here?
Up near the South Carolina-Georgia line. I would have to look closer at I'm not familiar with up near Sardis, Millhaven, that area.
What's that town? What's that town in the top left of the slide there?
Waynesboro.
Okay. So not too far from there.
Not too far from Waynesboro.
All right. What's kind of the bottom line conclusion as to the child's father's phone's location from the period on the slide here, 11 p.m. on the 4th to shortly before 9 a.m. on the
Yep.
5th?
All the phone data and timing advance indicated that phone was up in that area near the Georgia-South Carolina border for that entire time period.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Any indication that it came anywhere near Savannah that night?
There were no records indicating that it was anywhere other than these locations.
Now, we've come to the end of the report, but let me ask you this. Did you also do the same sort of analysis with respect to the defendant's timing advance data?
Yes, I did.
And did you also look at her Life 360 GPS data as well?
Yes, I did.
To keep it simple, I'd just like to refer you to some things that we've already heard from Taylor Burns.
Okay.
And let me ask you this. You originally had slides pertaining to her, right?
I did.
And is it fair to say that there were more of them and that they were more complicated because her phone had made a couple significant movements from the house during that night?
Yeah, there were several slides. I don't remember the exact number, but I think probably 10, somewhere close to that, with additional data, with a lot of timing advanced and a lot of movement of a phone.
Now, to keep it simple, I'll just ask you about your review of Taylor Burns' screen capture videos of his GPS plotting, okay? Did you review a screen capture video of Taylor Burns' GPS plotting from the defendant's phone and Life 360 records, showing that phone making a movement first to a Circle K and then later to a location identified as her drug dealer's house?
Yes, in my original analysis, they provided some other phones and another location, and the phone was consistent with moving towards that area.
Okay. And after reviewing that screen capture video produced by Taylor Burns, can you tell us whether your analysis of that movement as reflected in her phone records and Life 360 records aligns with the product that Taylor put together?
Yeah, so the Life 360 GPS coordinates are going to be more specific, but the timing advance lined up with the same pattern of movement as the Life 360 records.
Okay. Did you also look at a screen capture video of GPS plotting that Special Agent Burns did showing a movement by the defendant's phone to the Azalea Mobile Home Plaza, remaining there stationary for a short period of time and then returning to 535 Buckhalter Road?
Yes.
Did your analysis of her timing advance data for her phone number for that period line up with Special Agent Burns' GPS plotting of that movement?
Yes, the timing advance data was consistent with that same movement.
Did you review a screen capture video that that Special Agent Burns produced pertaining to the boyfriend's cell phones, or the boyfriend's Life 360 records, showing in the early morning hours a movement away from the phone, from the home to his workplace, him remaining there for a few hours, and then returning back to the home. Did you see that video?
I did.
And did your timing advance analysis for the defendant's phone record, for the boyfriend's phone records during that time period line up with what Special Agent Burns had produced in the way of GPS mapping for that time period?
Yes, it did.
Okay. One moment, please. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. Mr. Henry?
Thank you, Your Honor. Special Agent Corley, you said you've been in the FBI for 13 years?
Yes, sir.
And I assume, and I'm just trying to figure it out. Did you work anywhere before the FBI, or were you in school?
No, I was a captain in the United States Air Force.
Okay, and how long were you a captain in the Air Force for?
9 years. Well, I'm sorry, I was a captain for 5. I was a lieutenant for 4.
Thank you for your service, Special Agent. All right, let's go back to your illustration, if I could, just to see if I can make sense of what it's saying and what we're trying to say with it. Is the sectors kind of give you a wide, broad swath in which a phone is pinging off of that tower, right?
Ping to me means a different thing, but yes, it's a general directional. RF frequency doesn't stop at a line on the ground, so it's more of an ambiguous like shape, but it is a general representation of that tower's coverage.
Right, and all I'm trying to get at is when I say pinging, I mean the phone is interacting with the tower in that sector in some way.
Yes, there's a date and timestamp of an event that produces that record.
Right. But all that record really produces is that there's been interaction with that sector of that tower with that phone, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So and that's all I'm trying to get at. So with regard to the boyfriend's phone, it says here that there were 22 events, it looks like, off of the tower near, this is off page 9 of your report. There were 22 events off the tower near the Sky Zone Trampoline Park between the hours of 10:32 and 5:48, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the analysis and the data that you got, does it tell you what those events were, or does it just tell you that there were 22 events?
So these were all timing advanced data. So there were network interactions. So there was nothing that the phone was doing. There was no calls, no text messages,
Right.
nothing like that aligned with this timing advanced data. These were all network measurements.
So it's just saying that this tower and this phone are interacting 22 events in this time frame.
Correct.
Okay. And the next question I have is, and then it has one event from the other tower closer to Hunter during the same, I guess, at 10:57.
That's correct, yes, sir.
Okay. And that event, was that a timing advance event, or was that a phone call, or what was it?
These are all timing advanced events.
Okay, so it didn't register the phone call, correct?
This does not require any user interaction with the phone.
Right. And so this time frame is pinging off of, I guess, an adjacent tower, correct?
It is pinging off a neighboring tower, yes, sir.
All right. And the other tower to the top right of that, it has the 23 events, let's say.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Don't know, just asking. Would that tower encompass the other events, or are these separate events?
These are all separate events.
Okay, so the total events that you looked at for this time frame would be 23 events from the one tower, 22 events from the Sky Zone Tower, and 1 event from the Hunter Army Airfield Tower.
Correct.
Okay. So, and that, again, it's just timing advance events. It doesn't require anything from the phone or any interaction. This is just the phone and the towers talking, correct?
That's correct.
Now, my question is it looks like and I'm horrible with math, so correct me if I'm wrong. There's a total of 46 events in this time frame for this particular phone, right?
Yes, sir.
And it's all just the towers interacting with the phones, correct?
Correct.
So, is it normal to have the towers switch like that?
Yes.
Okay. So it's nothing indicative of anything other than it's just switching between the towers.
Yeah, so if you were making a phone call or using a text message or using your phone for a data session, the phone is selecting which tower it's going to use. And in most cases, well, not most cases, in all cases, it's going to select the tower with the cleanest, the best signal. Most of the time, that's the closest tower, but not always. But in these events, these are just network measurements. So the measurements often, they don't even have to be a usable cell phone signal. They're just measuring the distance of the devices, taking and saying, well, what's this phone look like when it's at this distance from this tower? And then they aggregate that data to do whatever engineering they need to do with it. So it doesn't matter what the phone's doing, and it doesn't follow the same rules as we wouldn't say if we didn't have the distance from the companies that tell us how far it is. This would be not usable because then it would just be like, well, it's bouncing off a bunch of different towers. How do we know where it's at? But because we have the distance, we can use it even though it is using multiple different towers.
And that's kind of what I'm getting to is let's assume the phone's stationary and hasn't moved. Mm-hmm. The analysis that you're doing, it's these phones and these towers are doing their own thing, determining which tower to use and which signal to use and how to bounce back and forth with little or no interaction from the user, correct?
That could be correct, yes, sir.
Right. Not always correct, but in this particular case, that's correct, right?
Appears to be, yeah.
Okay, all right. And that being said, the analysis doesn't ever actually say who is in possession or carrying or using the phone either.
No, I can't tell you that, no, sir.
Right, and you have to look at other things to know that, correct?
Well, I mean, I would say there's probably never an instance where I could say 100% that person had the phone unless I was sitting next to them and watching them use the phone. So it could be picked up by somebody else. But yeah, I can't determine who was using the phone.
Okay. That's all the questions I got. Thank you, Mr. Porter.
Is there any reason to hold this witness?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, you are excused.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you very much. State may call us next witness.
Special Agent Snyder.
Face the clerk and raise your right hand. The evidence you say give the court and jury in the trial of this issue should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Good morning.
Morning. Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Brad Snyder. I'm a special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
And how do you spell Snyder?
Snider.
How long have you been an FBI special agent?
Approximately 18 years.
Can you just briefly tell us about your education before joining the FBI?
Sure. So I attended college at Appalachian State University. After college, I joined the Marine Corps as a Marine Corps officer. Spent approximately 8 years on active duty in the United States Marine Corps, and then joined the FBI after leading active duty.
Can you tell us a little bit about your FBI career leading up to this case?
Sure. So I currently serve as the coordinator for the FBI's Southeast Georgia Violent Crimes Task Force. Prior to that, I've been here in the Savannah office for about 15 years. Worked both violent crime cases, violent crimes against children cases, national security cases here in Savannah, as well as throughout the country and abroad.
Now, on October 5th, day one of this investigation, did you become involved in investigating the disappearance of Quinton Simon?
I did.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you initially became involved? You know, the phone call or the conversation or whatever it was that brought you into this?
Sure. On our task force, we have a intelligence analyst with the Savannah Area Regional Intelligence Center. On that October 5th morning, we got an email from that analyst advising us of a potential kidnapping, abduction within the county. So upon receiving that email, I reached out to Detective Lemons with the Chatham County Police Department just to offer the services of the FBI. At that point in time, they really didn't have a clear picture as to what they had. So approximately an hour later, Detective Lemons called back and said, this is...
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
It's offered to the effect on the listener, Your Honor. How did you become involved? I got a phone call. That's admissible.
Not what she said. You can testify about the effect and tell what she said.
You may want to rephrase your question, Mr. Dean.
After getting this phone call from Lemons and getting kind of a big picture of what was going on, did you respond to the